embrace reality at all costs. So that means even if it costs you being right, even if it costs you what you thought about that person, even if it costs you your belief that you had a family, even if it costs you your beliefs about love and your friends, no matter what it costs you, or no matter what you think it costs you, which really what it's going to cost you more than anything, it's going to cost you your beliefs. It's going to cost you your fantasies. And that can feel like such an enormous cost. It feels like it's just way too high a price that's unbearable to pay. But when you really break it down, you're not losing anything. It's not really costing you anything except for a fantasy that's keeping you disabled, a fantasy that's keeping you powerless. So when I was willing to embrace reality at all costs, I faced a really harsh reality. I faced a really awful situation. I faced that my husband didn't love me. He never did love me. I faced that my parents didn't love me. I faced that I was in my 30s and quite possibly and really hadn't hardly been loved at all. I'd been loved by my grandmother, and I had been loved by some friends, and I think I had been loved by a boyfriend, maybe, but at that moment in my life, I was really unloved because my grandmothers were gone, and my husband and my parents and my brother and my sister-in-law and the people right in my immediate world that I was counting on for love and commitment and care and family and loyalty and protection weren't there. They weren't there, and they were going to harm me. They were harming me. They were lying about me and stealing from me and trying to take my kids from me, and it was a really brutal thing. But the beauty was that day that I embraced reality, things changed. I started coming into my power. The worst was over that day. That was the worst day. It was my lowest low, but it never got lower than that. And I started being able to climb my way back up because I knew what I was dealing with at least then. And what was interesting is that from that point forward, I was the only one that really had a grip on reality, because at this point, they were all in their own different fantasy land. So I actually had an advantage in that sense, in that I at least knew what was going on. They didn't, because they underestimated me. They didn't see themselves accurately, and they didn't see what had happened and what had gone on accurately, and they didn't understand love. So they underestimated the power of the love that I had for my kids, and so they thought I was going to be more easily defeated than I was, because they didn't understand how powerful that love was, and that really was the strongest thing that there was. That was the indestructible thing about me that they couldn't get to, was that love, because they didn't know what it was about. It was never going to be a fair fight between us. Cognitive dissonance is just another way of lying, of not telling yourself the truth, of not being completely honest. And what I found is that ultimately my power came from when I finally was able to let go of all the things that I had done, all the defense mechanisms I had used, and I just decided to embrace reality and really deal with what I had to deal with. And when I was able to see okay, these people don't love you. What do I have? What do I have on my side? What do I have going for me? What do I, so I didn't have what I thought I was going to have. What I thought I was going to have was a family and a community and support for my kids and myself, people who would put the kids first. I didn't have that. I had a lot of people who were putting themselves first and willing to harm my children, and certainly willing to harm me and break the law and do all kinds of things. I was all of a sudden a victim of people that I trusted. But as soon as I finally was able to accept that, then I realized that what I had was more powerful than anything any of them had. And that was, I had love for my kids. And there was nothing any of them had that was more powerful than that.